All right, no. So I am going to start the meeting at 6:30. July 20th, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Roll call, all present. Jack is absent. Attest to publication.
I saw it posted.
Thank you, Joni. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Actually, if you would unmove.
I unmove.
I don't know if that's the technical term. My one change that I would like to just note is that in section 3 special reports, B, C, and D are going to kind of flow together. So Kevin and I are going to kind of present together a back and forth and bring Peter Leatherman in for part of that discussion. So just, we're not going to follow that exactly per script for B, C, and D.
I'll move to approve with the noted change.
Second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lori to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Lisa, District Mission, Vision, and Values, and Board of Education Collective Commitment.
Bangor Pride, a small school building big futures, an innovative small school creating excellence through personalized learning and relationships for all. Student-centered, safety, opportunities for all, small class sizes, fiscally sustainable, foster community, continuous improvement, and professionalism. Collective commitment. As a member of the Bangor School Board, I will be an active listener who is open-minded, respectful, and inquisitive. Together with one collective voice, we are committed to forward thinking while strategically prioritizing for our students, staff, and community now and into the future.
Thank you, Lisa. Public comment? There's nobody here from public. Moving on, approval of the minutes from June 22nd.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Tina, seconded by Joni to approve the June 22nd regular meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Special reports. Meal prices. Emily, come on down. Welcome. Nice to see you again. Hi.
Yep.
Okay. Test. Okay. So I'm here to kind of present the prices for the 22-23 school year. So at this time, the USDA meal programs will be transitioning back to the traditional child nutrition program operation of the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program. USDA has a waiver out there so we don't have to complete the paid lunch equity tool that we typically do use to calculate our meal prices. However, they want us to take into account where our budget's going to fall. If we don't utilize that as a tool, school food authorities may decrease their paid lunch prices from what it has been previously using federal sources or revenue from the sale of a la carte foods, which is an option. The 2022 Keep Kids Fed Act was signed by President Biden on June 25th of this year. So in addition to a suite of waivers and flexibilities, the bill also provides an additional 15 cents of reimbursement for breakfast and 40 cents reimbursement for lunch. That is on top of the anticipated 7.4% increase in reimbursement rates that we will see due to inflation. But despite this increase in reimbursement, it's still anticipated that food costs will go up as much as 15% from last year, and meal prices will have to be adjusted for this increase. Based on the paid lunch equity tool, the target weighted average price is $3.31 per lunch. That's essentially the difference between the reimbursement rate for a free meal and the reimbursement rate for a paid meal or a normal paid student reimbursement rate for the 21-22 school year, since the reimbursement rates for this coming school year aren't shared yet. But with the paid lunch equity tool, it does adjust the price based on previous pricing within Bangor School District. So the target weighted average for Bangor was calculated to be $3.28. So despite the flexibility to not need to use the PLE tool, it is still recommended that we follow the recommendations to keep up with the rising food costs that we're seeing and not fall behind other area school districts. This would result in a 25-cent increase in lunch prices and a 10-cent increase in breakfast prices at this time. So for breakfast, it would be $1.65 at the elementary and $1.90 at the middle high. Reduced students would get a free breakfast at both levels. And for lunch, elementary would be $3.10 and middle high would be $3.40. And then the reduced price for at both levels would be 40 cents for a lunch. I have included in here kind of some surrounding district pricing. Some of these are board approved already. Some of them are just proposed prices that they're kind of looking at. I can tell you Holman has lowered the prices that are listed here. But otherwise, these are some of the prices that we're seeing other districts charging or planning to charge for this upcoming school year as a comparison. I've also listed a historical pricing list back from 2016-2017 school year and beyond for a reference. Any questions about breakfast and lunch pricing at this point?
Emily, I thought your report was very, very inclusive and gave the board and community a good set of information. So if there are no questions for Emily, we would look for a motion to approve the price increase of meals presented at the as presented with a 25% or 25-cent increase to the lunches and 10-cent increase to breakfast.
I'll make a motion to approve the price increase for meals as presented, 25-cent increase for lunch and 10-cent increase for breakfast.
I'll second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Lisa to approve the price increase for meals as presented with a 25-cent increase for lunches and 10% increase for breakfast. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emily.
You can just give an FYI in the milk, but that's not necessarily approval, I don't believe. It's the new meal prices.
Okay. So just as an FYI, we're going to continue with the price range of the morning milk program to be $15.75 per quarter for K through 5. But due to the schedule change in the pre-K, it's going to be $13 per quarter at that level. It's approximately 36 cents per carton when you calculate it out based on how many days in a quarter. And at this time, adult prices will remain the same until we get further guidance from the DPI. So thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. All right, moving on with special reports, B, C, and D.
Yeah, thank you for the flexibility. I'm going to give kind of Peter a little bit of an intro here before we get going, but wanted to just share, we're obviously talking about referendum and the potential of a referendum that may occur in November, kind of building towards that. I wanted to give just an overview for the community and for reminder for the board that this year we started touring the buildings in September and October meetings, looking at facility, looking at the space, looking at some of the items that needed to be looked at. We talked about at our board retreat in September, the fact that we are in this position financially that we're going to start looking at, what type of capital improvements may be needed for the district. October, we sent out the RFP to architects and firms looking for what a facility study process would look like for the district. Gathered a number of different proposals and had a couple very long nights in the library where our building and grounds committee interviewed a number of people and interviewed Nexus 2 times to make sure that we got that correct. We approved the use of Nexus Solutions beginning at their December board meeting and brought Nexus in and began their work in January. We spent time with our staff dreaming about what the future of Bangor School District would look like in terms of facilities. We did surveys of our staff. We did interviews with a number of people within the district to learn about what are the needs of the district when we talk about our facilities. And we did a couple of board study sessions where we really started to dig in and make sure that we were in alignment with what the vision for the future of the district may be. The findings of that full comprehensive facility study process came to the school board in May. And immediately following, we went into sessions, additional sessions with the board, additional sessions with staff and community to gather feedback on the full findings of the study. The original study identified $24.9 million in priorities for the next 0 to 5 years. Every time that we had one of those sessions where we talked with staff, where we talked with community, where we talked with the board, there was feedback. There have been adjustments made along the way. You heard from you heard from Brian Brewer from Baird a month ago, looking at the financial impacts if we were to look at approximately $24.5 million referendum. And he talked about the fact that this is a 20-year investment into our district. And to do the full 24.5, we were looking at a mill rate impact of $1.82. We gained feedback from that. We continued to prioritize, reprioritize, redesign, look at reductions of scope to kind of get closer to maybe a $20 million target, because that mill rate increase of $1.82 we felt was maybe a little bit more than our community was ready for. We agreed as a board in our last study session that we needed to do a better job of informing the community about what was going on, and we've since released a press release and got a number of news coverage pieces on this. I offered 3 sessions for community to come in and hear a presentation from me and learn more about the process and provide some feedback to us. We did not get a huge turnout, but we did offer that as an opportunity, put that out there. And we've created a really amazing mailer that I put in the mailbox 2 Fridays ago. And I know that it hasn't hit every mailbox yet. So I don't know what the holdup is there, but we do have some more good information going out on that. As part of that, we also felt it was really important to hear from our community in some type of manner to see what the level of support for the projects we're talking about and the financial numbers we were looking at that time. We contracted with Peter Leatherman and his company through Nexus, and they have done some phone polling that he's here to tell us about. So I'm going to leave leave it at that and let him present the results of the polling to you. And then this is going to be a great opportunity for tonight for you to ask him some questions about how the community is feeling about the work that we've done to this point in time. Thank you, Peter. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I've left the clicker. All right, just to review what we undertook for the district. We spoke with 400 randomly selected residents across the school district. A 400 sample is always projectable to plus or minus 5% in 95 out of 100 cases. That's if it's 400 in the Bangor School District or 400 in the state of Wisconsin. The margin of error is determined by the size of the sample, not the percent of the population. So as long as it's a random sample, it's projectable to that margin of error. Average interview time was 10 minutes. The non-response level was 5.5%. Once folks realized that we weren't going to sell them anything and we weren't voter IDing them for any political purposes, they were more than happy to talk about their schools. And we found that. I mean, my company's been in business. I've been doing this for 28 years. The company's been around for almost 40. People care about their local government. They might not necessarily care about state government, and right now they really don't care too much for Washington, D.C., but they still care about their city and their school districts. So they're more than willing to talk. This data is hot off the presses. The calls were completed on Saturday, so between July 11th and July 16th of this year. I always put up demographics. The purpose of demographics are twofold. First off, so that we can look at differences in attitudes and opinions. How do households with children feel versus households without children? How do renters feel? How do homeowners feel? Those sorts of things. But more importantly, it's used to validate against updated census information to make sure that we have a representative sample. We don't have 90% households with children, those sorts of aspects. So the first set of bars are how long have they lived in the school district? Your folks have lived here for a long time. 48%, almost a majority, have lived in the district for over 20 years. The average, the median, is 19 years in the district. You do have 12% that have been here for less than 5 years. 16% indicated that they had a preschooler or an infant. 24% had a child attending the Bangor School District, and 67% have no children whatsoever. The empty nester does not connotate an age. Okay, we could have a 32-year-old without children. It's simply the lack of presence of a child. 15% indicated that they rent their current residence. 22% were at under $150,000 home value. 40% between $150,000 and $250,000, and then 23% over $250,000. Median comes in right at $200,000. Typically, that's high. People always overestimate their home value based on what they hear and what they hope it will bring. But the self-assess comes in right at about $200,000. Continuing with the demographics, it's a very Republican community. 57% indicated that they were Republican, 30% Democrat, 13% Independent. Median education attainment is some college experience, albeit short of college graduation. 29% were high school graduates or less, while 36% were college graduates, and that also includes postgraduates, such as doctors, master's degrees, all sorts of things. The key factor, obviously, right now is the financial situation of the household. We used to ask income level. About 12 years ago, we switched over because the more we thought about it, income doesn't necessarily dictate the ability to pay. And so this question asks people about their expenses versus their income and how are they matching up. 45% indicate they're financially stressed. 54% indicate that they're financially comfortable. What we have seen over the past 4 months is a 50% increase in the financially stressed across the Midwest. And this is yo-yoed all over the place. Before the pandemic, the median was about 28%. The pandemic drove it up to about 50%. It never got to the point of the recession, 2008, 2009, where we had 65%, indicating they were financially stressed. It never got to that point. Later in 2021, it dropped back down to about 30%. Now it is steadily growing. We're almost now at a majority, again, financially stressed. So that is going to be a key factor in all elections this November and potentially going into the future. What is inflation at? What is the cost of a gallon of gas? So it's something that's under, in the background of everything that's going to happen. The last set of demographics then, 18 to 34-year-olds were 20%. 42% indicated they were over the age of 55, with 25% over the age of 65. Male, female were balanced, 50-50. And then the geographic place of residence, Village of Bangor was 36%, Village of Rockland, 19%, and then the rest of the district was 45%. Normally at this point, before I go into the results, I always ask, any questions on the methodology or the demographics? All right, survey says, we start out first, this is an open-ended, and so we haven't talked with them about anything, about a bond referendum, about the school district, just what's the biggest challenge facing the school district. They can tell us anything, and we collapse them down into categories. And looking at this, I always tell clients, if we get an issue at 25, over 25%, 30%, 1 in 4, 1 in 3 people coalescing around a response. We consider that to be a serious challenge in the district, okay? You don't have anything that hits that level. You have 2 issues that hit double digits. First off, the lack of funding, 15%. And then interestingly enough, the facilities needs at 11%. 1 in 10 volunteered that response in the open-ended question before we've even started discussing facilities needs. So in all the bond referendums that I've worked on, it's actually on the higher side at this point in time of an awareness before we actually talk about specific details. And then you could see everything else goes into the single digits, from outdated technology to poor discipline to safety from gun violence. But there's no one major issue. 2 other bars that I'll point to, the uncertainty, 16%. That's 1 in 6 people. It's almost all non-parents. What we found over the course of the pandemic is non-parents are tuned out more than ever on local government when we start asking about specifics. They've had bigger things to think about, from the pandemic to social justice to the 2020 presidential race to the vaccine, and now we're into the economy and inflation and gas prices. They're just not engaged at a level to be able to provide detail like they have in the past. And then the 9% at the bottom, those are your boosters. There are no problems in the school district, or no challenges whatsoever. Everything is wonderful. That's double of normally we see that at about 5% right now. So about 1 in 10 are boosters, and they're positive throughout, towards the school district, towards a potential bond referendum, everything. So you do have a good base of boosters in the community than we typically see over the past couple years. Now, how do folks rate the current buildings and facilities? They rate them good. Okay, 73% rate them favorably, 14% rate them only fair or poor, and 13% are unsure. But you can see the favorable, when I combine the excellent and good, it's predominantly good more so than excellent. Okay, so the discussion, when you consider the bond referendum, is not that things need to be fixed because they're in terrible condition. It's how are the changes going to move the buildings from and the facilities from good to excellent. But there's also one other step to do in the communication, because we're Midwesterners and we don't like bright, shiny buildings just for bright, shiny building's sake. How is it going to impact the student's education in the classroom? And how is it going to impact the curriculum that can be offered? That's the link for folks when you talk about moving the facilities and the buildings from good to excellent. We ask folks, are they following the discussions? And sadly, but not atypically, they're not. We see this over the last 30 years. The 7% are primarily parents saying they're following it very closely. 44% fall into the very and somewhat, but 56% are not following it too closely or not at all. Fairly typical. So it is limited awareness of the discussions you're having at this point in time. Keep that in mind when we go through the next set of slides, though. Are they interested in engaging the discussions? No. Pretty much it mirrors what they are saying with following the discussions. 9% are very interested, somewhat interested is 28%, and 60% are just happy not to be engaged on discussions. This is not atypical whatsoever. What about, do they believe that the facilities discussions will achieve the goal of meeting the needs of students, families, and the community? Absolutely. 74% believe that the proposal put forward will meet the needs of all three groups. Only 7% say no, and 19% are unsure. I'm just going to flip back, though. Keep in mind, we have 6% disagreeing with that, but we have 56% that really aren't following it whatsoever. It tells us that even if they don't have the knowledge, they have the trust in you as an organization, that you're going to come up with a proposal that meets the needs of the community. And then similarly, are you going to come up with a plan that's responsible to taxpayers? Keeping in mind 56% really have no idea what we're talking about. Overwhelmingly, yes. 77% do believe that you will come up with a plan that's responsible to taxpayers. Only 6% disagree. So the district does have a lot of credibility when it comes to you have a lot of trust from the community when it comes to this plan that you're thinking about, even though there's limited knowledge from them on what the specifics are, okay? So then we ask our question, your predisposition. And the question is simply, if you heard the district was going to ask for a property tax increase, would you be for all property tax increases, against all, or are you persuadable, for some and against others? You follow the trend that we've seen now over the past 15 years. And I say this, half the people have made up their mind with no information. Because I haven't told them if it's a bond referendum or an operating levy. I haven't told them if it's $5 a month or $500 a year. There's no information. 47% are for or against, regardless of what the facts are. It comes out that you're +1. You have 1% more core support than core opposition. Now, over the dozens of referendum over the past 3 years, the successful ones are normally at a -4 or better. Okay, that means they have 4% more opposition at the outset than support, where you're in a position where you actually have a +1. But the key is obviously going to be the 51% that are persuadable, that want to know what the money's going to be used for. Following up, then, keeping in mind you have 23% against all in concept, we then do our let's make a deal question. What would be a reasonable property tax increase for facilities? The 23% are consistent. They say nothing. I won't support a property tax increase for any purpose. 28% say $5 a month, 26% say $10 a month, and 17% say $15 or more. Norm comes in right at about $8 typically if we take out the nothings. Now, I always tell boards and administrations, this is not set in stone. It's meant to set a guardrail for you to realize that the further you go from that number, the importance it is on what's included in the plan, okay? Which is why we go through the next set of questions and ask, would you support a property tax increase for this purpose? Okay, normally I just array this as support, opposition, and uncertainty. But I thought for your district, it's telling to look at strong support than total opposition. First off, at the outset, the lowest amount of support you have for a component is 67%. Athletic facility repairs and the new fitness center. Okay, the highest we have is 84% for technical education spaces. You have overwhelming support for all 13 components that we tested. You can see though in intensity, there is a hierarchy. At the very top, safety and security. 83% support a property tax increase, 57% strongly support a property tax increase. Technical ed, 84% with 51% strong support. The building infrastructure, 82% with 50%. What this tells us when I see this, first off, there's no red flags or deal killers. By deal killer, it's something that has 50, 60% opposition at the outset before we've even talked about cost. You actually have a district I'll be presenting to on Monday night over by Milwaukee. Your lowest level still is higher than all the components we tested for them. You have extraordinarily high levels of support. You've landed on the components that are valued in the community, and they're willing to support a property tax increase for, obviously depending on what the amount of the property tax increase is. We then asked for an overall evaluation. Well, it was glowing as we broke down the components. What's an overall assessment? 78% say all the ideas that we presented sound like a good idea. Only 14% indicate that they sound like a bad idea. If we look at those that feel strongly one way or the other, it's 6-1 in favor of good idea to bad idea. How about the $24 million cost? I always test this for sticker shock. And you are one of the highest we have over the last 5 years of people saying, yeah, that sounds like a fair price for what we're getting. Typically, this is 45 to 50% saying yes, with about 45 to 50% saying no. You actually have 63% saying yes. They see a lot of value in all the components that we listed out for the 24 million. So then when the rubber hits the road, we told them, because at the end of the day, the 24 million number is out there, but it is an ethereal number. People don't understand what does 24 million mean in the context of the district. What matters and what they vote on is how much it costs them. So we tell them after this question, if voters approved a $24 million bond referendum to fund these improvements, the owner of a $100,000 home would see a monthly property tax increase of about $5 per month or $60 per year for 21 years, while the owner of a $200,000 home would see a monthly increase of about $10 per month or $120 per year. So the median then comes in roughly at the tax tolerance, and we know that there's high levels of support for all the components. So you have 66% that are willing to support the $24 million bond referendum, 32% oppose. If we look at intensity, it's better than 2-1 in favor of strong support to strong opposition. Now, this is the community as a whole. What about likely voters? We asked 3 questions early in the survey, asking about past voting behavior and the intention to vote in November. Now, this number is going to be fluid this fall, depending on issues completely out of your control between the federal level races and the statewide races. Right now, in your district, 63% fell into the category of a likely voter at this point in time. 72% of the likely voters would support, while 26% would oppose. At this point in time, strong support is 4 times higher than strong opposition. So you actually do get an uptick from 66 to 72% when we look at likely voters. But keep in mind, this is a fluid and dynamic profile. What happens in September and October will determine the turnout you have, regardless of anything you do as a district, and the communication and any efforts a vote yes would do. It'll be completely out of your control between the governor's race and House seats and the legislative races. Now, what are the reasons for their position on the potential bond referendum? The blue bars are the reasons for support. The red bars are reasons for opposition. 21% said education's important. 19% have children in the district, 17% said the cost is reasonable, and 11% said it's needed. On the flip side, on opposition, 11% said the cost is too high, no children at 8, poor district spending at 5, their current taxes are too high at 3, 5% or 3% talked about the bad economic timing. 1% said not needed. 2 points on this. First off, if we look at those that said need versus not need, it's 11-1. It's not an argument for opposition of whether this is needed. It's an argument of cost and the economic timing in the district. Also, in the course of the discussion, if you do go for the referendum, the communication, the need will have to be the number one reason. They'll have to understand that there's a purpose for what's being asked for. With the current economic conditions we have, this is very reminiscent of 2008, 2009 in polling and helping districts back then. It became have to haves were passing, nice to haves were more difficult to pass. Okay, so it's really important as you think about communication and discussion with the community. And then just a couple more slides. Where are folks getting their information? 28% get it from the district newsletter, 19% the local newspaper, 18% word of mouth. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, so I appreciate that. 1 in 5 folks like to get gossip as their primary source of information. 11% district website, 5% social media and teachers and staff, email, and 2% scattered, idiosyncratic responses. But the dominant sources of information are print, 47% at the top. Now, how do they prefer to receive information? This one, I always look at print versus electronic. 55% want something in their hands between the mail newsletter and local newspaper. On the electronic side, the website, social media, and email, about 28%. Now, there are very clear demographics on this, that it is over the age of 55 prefer print, parents prefer an electronic. Let's keep in mind, 24% had children in the district, 28% prefer electronic. So the district will have to do both and do both well. The other thing to point out though is, and this isn't an option we offered, but 1 in 12 people, 8% volunteered that they prefer the most effective way to receive information is from the word of mouth. So the grapevine is powerful here with 1 in 5 getting their information and 1 in 8 preferring to get their information that way. And the grapevine is always something that, you know, it's fairly easy to monitor. Every district has a restaurant or a bar that is the primary, just the focus of where the grapevine is located. One thing also we've seen over the years is local newspapers have diminished, not necessarily gone out of business in districts, but coverage is not what it used to be. Over 55-year-old and especially men have moved to the grapevine. Grapevine used to be younger parents, and they would be talking at ECFE, they'd be talking at youth sports, those sorts of things. So the grapevine now as a dominant source of information is primarily over the age of 50-year-old men. So it's something to consider in the communication efforts going forward. So what can we say at the end of it? Overall, the community does feel very good about the district. We didn't go into a lot of different atmospherics like we do simply because we didn't have time in the course of the survey. But there is trust, even though there's limited awareness of the discussions, there's trust that you're going to do what's right for the community and more importantly, what's responsible to taxpayers, okay? The plan that you have with those components tested is the right plan. Okay, the cost is within the parameters of what people are willing to tolerate. So do you go in November? Do you wait till next year? I would recommend at this point in time, you would go in November and give it a shot. I'm telling districts at this point in time over the last 3 months, when you have results like this will win or lose regardless of what you do. This is going to be a macroeconomic election. Okay, if gas is at $6 and inflation's at 12%, everything across the state of Wisconsin and the state of Minnesota is going to fail. Okay, and it's just because of that financially stressed. Every district has a set number of people And it fluctuates on that financially stressed that would support, but simply can't afford to support. And so if that goes to 55 or 60%, it's going to be difficult. But there's nothing in the planning process, the components presented or the cost that would indicate that you can really do anything. Do you shave this back by $4 million to save $1? That's kind of a distinction without a difference. It is the right plan. People see the needs. It's just going to come down to an economic feasibility for them on the first Tuesday of November. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I did just upload the PowerPoint to Board Docs so that it is publicly available. We'll get that onto our site as well. And it came in an email to the whole board. So you've got that and the presentation coming up from Kevin for your review as well.
I just have to say I'm impressed with your results. I was one of those who didn't think anybody would answer the phone, didn't think anybody would take the time. So I thank you very much for your efforts.
I've heard that for 28 years. Yeah. and I tell you what, when I meet with U.S. representatives, I tell them, yeah, you're right. Nobody wants to talk about you in Washington, D.C. But for cities and school districts, people do care. Absolutely.
I agree with Joni. I was right with her, like, they're not going to talk, but Kevin assured us you've had good results, so thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, as John switches out the presentation, as you can see, there was a couple of things that happened in a real short timeline that we were able to squeak in just before we went to that survey. A few weeks back, the news came out from the state the estimates came out on the state aid. That state aid helped our district considerably, about an extra $500,000 per year coming towards the district in aid. That has to do with the amount of spending that we do in the previous year. And, with the first year of the operational referendum, stepping up $100,000 with some of the way that we spent ESSER dollars, those types of things. And just the fact that our enrollment has continued to grow and we've got a little bit more money from the state, we spent more. So in doing that, we are aided back on that. So that's why that change is coming. And when you look at our growth factors and the operational referendum, that's different than some of our counterparts around us. So that did take that mill rate that we were looking at a potential $1.82 for $24.5 million and reduced it to the 60 cents or 61 cents that we're talking now. That is still, it's a pretty close dot, but that's going to change a little bit over time. We have one more set of numbers that we're going to talk about tonight that will be coming in with evaluation of the community that we expect will again have another positive impact on that impact. The other part that Kevin's going to go into more in detail is we're also seeing through construction projects across the state, inflation taking its toll on that. So we had worked pretty hard to get to, knowing that full $1.60, or $1.82 impact was going to be a little bit too much. We had started to bring those redesigns in and scaling back and trying to figure out different ways for us to attack some of the deferred maintenance, but still make sure we get some of those educational adequacy things addressed. So we had been working on that. So when the numbers came in for the additional inflation, which you're going to see here soon, we were positioned pretty well for that. So Kevin's going to kind of break that down a little bit more of what that process has looked like, and then ultimately what our next steps are as a board and district to move forward and make sure you guys have time to process all of that as we go. So with that, I'll kind of turn it over. Yep. Yeah. So I created this slide just because I needed to see this. When I met with the few folks that came in for the community sessions, we want to make sure that we're telling the story that this is not a, you guys hired a new superintendent, the new superintendent thinks that it's time to go to a referendum and do that type of thing. This is a kind of a everything coming together at once. So the facility needs of the district, you can see with 11% of the population in that slideshow that is saying yes, there's some facility needs. There is facility things that can't be accomplished within an annual budget. We have pressure on our schools to be competitive with our surrounding schools in an age of school choice, and people can take their kids to whatever district they want. We have debt falling off, as we know from the previous capital referendum on the elementary school, leaving us that room in the levy that we can make some of these improvements without a significant impact on that levy. As we all know, we're seeing that slow and steady growth, which is the best kind of growth in my mind, is slow and steady versus explosive. But that slow and steady growth for the district, where we're starting to get pinched for that space, especially at the elementary school. All of that with what Brian Brewer had shared with us last month, that the only way that the district is going to get that funding to get some of those things that can't be accomplished in the annual budget is through referendum. All of those points coming together to start to point towards November 8th as a logical step. So it wasn't one of those things that's driving this conversation. When we talk about need, it's all of those factors coming together and pointing us in that direction. And obviously, we've heard a little bit about how the community feels about that as well. So sorry, Kevin, go from there.
David. And I'd just like to publicly thank Peter for being here this evening. I'm hopeful that that data will help guide our discussion here, as I know the board took very seriously the input you wanted from the community. Also joining us virtually, who had a commitment at home this evening, is Brian Winterly. So you can't see him, but if you do ask me a question that I don't have an answer to, Brian may, so I asked him to join us as well. All right, so just a quick 30-second synopsis, and that looks pink up there. Starting in June, you had that board work session that David's referred to, where you really rolled up your sleeves and looked at priorities, looked at financial scope, and gave us some great input. From there, David already talked about all the community engagement that's been undertaken, including what led to the report tonight by Peter. Tonight, we find ourselves in the board meeting. Again, survey results were presented. Really, my role working with David tonight is to help recommend to you for consideration the slate of projects and the associated financial scope, and see if you've got some additional input for us, and talk about, as David said, next steps as well. And then we'll talk about as we go through, but there's a couple of dates on the horizon here that towards the end of the slides we'll reference to for you. So just in summary, I had a little bit of advance on this, not too much you guys seeing the community survey results, but enough to put a slide in. The three takeaways that I discussed with David really are the respondents, they're highly satisfied with the Bangor School District. A majority of the respondents support prioritizing projects within all the categories that were tested. And then a majority of respondents support the district pursuing a $24 million capital referendum. And these are all things that Peter obviously just presented. To that inflation discussion, this is something we're certainly having with all of the districts we're working with. We know it's, if you pump gas or you go to the grocery store, inflation is not a surprise by any means. But I wanted to share with you, in just the last month or so, there were 3 recent bids from Nexus projects, all different scopes, but the same result. We had a playground where the bids came in over budget, a greenhouse where the bids came in over budget, and then most importantly, a school project very similar in terms of remodels, additions to what you're looking at, that also came in over budget. To that point, the amount of contingency we've been putting in our budgets resulted in essentially the bids coming in pretty close to what the budgets were on bid day. Now we're starting to see that shift to them coming in over. So we had an internal discussion at our firm last week with everyone, and we looked at some other data as well. These are not Nexus projects, but Neenah High School that already went through referendum, but now in bidding phase, 14 million over budget. Madison Metro School District, 28 million over budget. And then if you look at the higher ed level, the state of Wisconsin's increasing budgets on their university projects as well, right now by over 20%. And our Bible in our industry, essentially, we look to a lot of data, says they're estimating about a 13% inflation growth this year in construction. So we came back to David, and basically my message to David was, timing is not obviously good at this point to talk about inflation and have this discussion, but I'd much rather have it with you than in September, October, or come bid day next year. So just a reminder, we serve as fiduciary for the district. What that means is we don't set the prices, we don't supply materials, we don't perform the construction, and we certainly don't benefit from any increased inflation. So our recommendation to the district was to include an additional 15% contingency for inflation. And we'll talk about budgets as we go through in the next few slides. I think I'm always a glass half full person, but regardless of if you're glass half full or glass half empty, your bids on your projects, should you go to referendum in November, will likely not happen till about a year from now. Okay, so worst case scenario, if we include this additional percentage of contingency and that proves out, you're covered, your budgets are covered at on bid day. Best case scenario is inflation is moderated in the next 12 months, at least to some degree, and Bangor is able to gain back additional budget for projects that you identified as priorities through your comprehensive assessment and planning process. So before I go any further, I just wanted to see if you had any questions about inflation, any comments, anything you wanted to discuss relative to that before we jumped into the specific recommendations. Okay. All right, so first I have a visual and then I'll jump into kind of a line item summary for you as well. And what you see here is, as David said earlier, is really the response to feedback from staff, from you, the board members, and community over the last number of months. And this is the elementary. And what you see in the darker gray is what we call heavy remodel, the lighter gray, which is the special education suite on the right side, a little bit lighter remodel, and then the red would be the additions. And just to quantify for you, in that at the bottom there, the addition for the grades 2 through 5 classrooms, that's about 14,750 square feet. If you look at the top, that's the kitchen, receiving, and lobby renovation. It's about 3,300 square feet. The core section, so the commons, title room, music room remodel, about 14,230 square feet. And then that special education suite remodel on the right side, right about 3,000 square feet. So that's the visual. I wanted to jump.
Kevin, can I just jump in right there?
Yep.
I think that square footage thing for our community and for our board to just really think about. We talked about bid days a year away. There is 9 months to a year of design in here. So the wall placements as it sits right now, the door placements, what classroom is what, is a concept. And I think we've hit this word concept so many times, but I want to just review it again. When we start to talk about the financials, we are looking at the percentage of that's the dark gray and the cost for heavy remodel, the percentage that is the light gray, which is the cost for the light remodel, and the percentage of that is the dark red, or the red that is new construction. So where I want community and where I want the board to remember is we've redesigned multiple times to try to affect cost. But realistically, it's the square footage, not this floor plan that you're approving. And we will have lots of chances to really make sure we get all of our stakeholders in the room and make sure that the design is right for our district within that scope that we're talking about right now. Is that a good way to put that? I just think it's a really good reminder for us as we look at this, that it's about that much square footage.
No, thanks, David. Okay, and so this just is a way to line item out. On the left-hand side for the elementary school, we've got the remodels and additions quantified there. You'll see those square footages I just mentioned, but we've got the grades 2 through 5 classroom addition, the kitchen, receiving, and lobby renovation, the commons, title, and music remodel, and the special education suite remodel. And then also you've got the new bathroom group, primarily associated with that classroom addition. The STEM renovation, toilet creation for 4K, in that room, office renovation to help accommodate your specialist, and then the secure vestibule addition off of essentially the new addition as well. So that on the left is remodels and additions. Then a big part of what we've talked about as a group here since the beginning of the assessment has been the maintenance side as well. So within the proposal to you, the recommendation, it's all the high priority ADA, doors, casework, and finishes. So just to go back one slide, do it on here. The areas that are white, I should have mentioned, doesn't mean there isn't work going to be taking place in those areas. In fact, quite a bit of what I'll talk about now in terms of maintenance also is involved in those white areas. So food service equipment, playground repairs, updated electrical and new generator, a paging bell clock system replacement, technology cabling replacement, your controls for your mechanical HVAC system, so the DDC controls updates, heating and cooling upgrades, classroom univent replacement. I forget what the teachers call that, the big monsters in the room, but basically replacing all of those. The gym and multi-purpose HVAC upgrades, water piping replacement, and then adding additional fire protection, which is really part of code based on the amount of remodel that's going to take place in that building. So I broke out for you then on the left and right the total budget for each one of those categories, and then at the bottom the total budget that is allocated right now to the elementary school. So before I jump to the middle high school, any questions on that? And I should have mentioned to you, I did set in front of you these same visuals and also the comprehensive spreadsheet that includes every single line item with an X that's part of the plan for you. So you've got that as a reference as well.
And I know there was confusion the last time we met about some things on the drawings that were not checked in on the spreadsheet, so the cost was not there. We have meticulously, cautiously gone through, and what we are showing in these drawings is reflective of what's in the cost. So.
All right, then moving on to, excuse me, the middle high school visual. So there, again, on the upper portion there in the red, it was what we're calling the fitness edition, 7,740 square feet in total. Below it there, below and to the left, is a remodel of the existing fitness area, which will now become a classroom for health primarily. The tech ed and auto edition on the bottom portion in red there, that's almost 2,700 square feet in total. 2 lifts, and also that includes right above it, the lab classroom remodel. And then where we are right now, the commons renovation, which really dovetails with what we'll talk about in a second with the old school gym. But it's filling in the steps, removing the ramp in existing stage, providing portable stage, some additions of trophy cases, and an expansion of concessions as well. And then also you can see both in the gray on the left in the middle school and the right on the high school is single user toilet additions for both wings. So that really covers the visual. And again, I'll jump to
I'm going to jump in one more time, not to make everything longer, but I think it's important. One of the things that we looked at is the single-user toilets off the commons area and multi-use there. So if you look at the front of that fitness edition, there are 2 single-user bathrooms that would be accessible from the commons area. We can also close that section off for maybe a JV football game or a middle school track meet or something like that, where we don't need a full crowd coming into the big bathrooms in the high school commons area. We can just have those bathrooms open so that we have less traffic in and out of the whole building on an event night. So kind of a double function there for us.
Yeah, thanks for that. Reminding me. Okay, similar format here for the middle and high school. Remodels and additions on the left side, which I just went through essentially for a total budget of $5.467 million. On the right side is the maintenance. So newer buildings, so essentially less maintenance happening here, but still some significant things. High priority food service, emergency generator replacement, relocation of the exhaust fan to help Mike as he's doing those repairs and create more efficiency, and then adding ventilation, additional ventilation to the science room. And that's in the big scheme a smaller number, still a big number, $364,000 in total. So your total middle high school budget, $5.831 million. Any questions on that?
Just a very silly question, but on our nice spreadsheet here,
Yes.
what does the yellow represent?
So the yellow was more for us for areas that perhaps at one time was either checked in or we had talked about checking it in. We ultimately determined with the district that they wouldn't be checked in. So that I left those in just to give you a viewpoint on that. So thanks for pointing that out too, that we evaluated just about every one of those line items. At some point during the process, they might have been in, came out, depending. Obviously, in the last month, we've gotten a lot of great feedback from the community, from you and from staff, which really helped us zero in on what was going to be checked in.
Part of that process too is some of the items that are unchecked are facility maintenance type things, $20,000, $30,000 projects that we can take on ourselves over the next few years, and make sure that we can get to where the items that are checked in are some of these larger items, the new construction, the additions, those types of things, which are outside of our ability to take care of within a regular operational budget. So really tried to prioritize down to that. Again, the highlighted list, the glass half full guy, and I'm with you. That's hopefully on bid day when our built-in inflationary numbers are higher than we anticipated, we are able to start to come back and check in some of those items that we had unchecked, and try to add some of those things back in if the bids are coming in better than anticipated.
Yeah, and in fact, you make a good point because part of the process, if you were to go to referendum, gain approval, and we get into the 9-month or so design time frame that David talked about, I want you to keep in mind during that design time frame, we're going to have bids happening around the state. So we're going to have real-time data on how inflation is impacting other projects. So he's completely right. On bid day, glass half full, we find out we've saved some money, came in under budget. That's great. But we'll be doing our best prior to bid day as we go through design with you if we're seeing inflation moderate, not waiting till bid day, but getting some of those other priorities identified to talk with you about that may be added back into the overall budget. So
On the color aspect there, Kevin,
Yep.
and green is what then?
So green would be anything, and do you have a specific example just so I can reference it?
Third page,
Okay.
very top.
So green would be something within the last number of weeks that we tweaked the budget on or even added in as part of the scope, checked it back in as part of the scope. Again, just something internally we've been using is we've been going back with David administration a million times on this and just wanted to keep a little bit of a record on what our discussions were representing. So. All right, moving on to the old school gym. Again, the visual up there for you. In this case, on the right side, we've got a storage addition identified for athletics and theater use. That's going to be 2,500 square feet right now is what it's budgeted for. You see on the bottom part in the gray, we've got that ADA ramp that's going to be incorporated into the remodeling to make that stage ADA accessible. On the top part in the gray, we've got the renovation for a dressing room, creating a dressing room and a single user toilet there. And then there's also a, not on this visual, but parking lot expansion as well. If we jump to the list, again, I just covered just about all the remodels and additions. That adds up to about $553,000. On the maintenance side, quite a bit of things proposed there. Painting of the tectum ceilings in the walls, install lay-in ceilings in the lobby, installing theatrical lighting, curtain rigging system, a new wood stage floor, roof replacement at the changing locker rooms and mechanical room, and then recoating of the roof over the lobby and the gym. Installing a window storefronts on the front entry area there, LED lighting upgrades, paging bell clock system addition, video and sound system addition, and then technology cabling. And one thing that is important, I'm sure to many people, that isn't a bullet point, but it's included on here, is also a reconfiguration or a remodel, so to speak, of the bleachers to accommodate folks that have disabilities as well. So that total budget on maintenance is $786,500, totaling $1.34 million at the old school gym. So just as a summary then, if you look at the total budget, so all those projects district-wide, including the inflation contingency, is about $24.7 million. In talking with the district, this has been a component of our discussions all along, but they looked very closely at ESSER and other district funding sources, and they feel as though they can allocate $750,000, $760,000 of district funds towards these projects. So that gets us right around $24 million for a potential referendum, capital referendum budget. I don't know if anything on here you want to cover, but it's basically just summarizes everything you just saw in numbers. So.
Yeah, I know Brian's listening too, and he may be looking for that. If you add up the slides prior to this, it does not equal the 24.76. That is where it's after that amount is in there that the inflationary number, that 15% inflation is put in there. So that's where that number comes in. The ESSER dollars is going to cover, if that's how we choose, the ESSER dollars that we have right now would cover that $750,000, $760,000. And I think the 24 million number is the number that we polled, and I think a reasonable number to be able to go with that would cover that inflation and hopefully allow us, glass half full, to end up putting a few of those things back in, but ensuring that we can, or we should be able to deliver on everything in those drawings and on those lists right now.
Yeah, you're correct. So why we approached it this way, rather than blending inflation in every one of the line item budgets, we kept it as a separate contingency because we know there's variability in that inflation number. And rather than having you see those budgets changing on a regular basis, we thought we'd keep the inflation as a separate contingency item. That way you knew exactly what we're allocating towards inflation. So if you look at the third page of your spreadsheet at the bottom, it actually breaks out the totals for you, and I believe calls out that what we're allocating right now for inflation and phasing contingencies. So, all right, David, you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide for you, and you guys have got emails with this information as well, but just for our community, with the newer projections, and you can see this is looking at a $20 million kind of bond or a $24.5 million bond. I think I could be in contact with Baird almost daily as we continue to kind of fluctuate these numbers, but that gives us a really good idea of kind of where our points are. So 24 million is going to be closer to that 60 cents, or, hopefully a little bit less. Like I said, August 15th, we find out more information about property values and how that affects it. That could come down a little bit more. But so folks in the community know what we polled, what we've shared with you tonight is for a full $24 million project is going to be right around that 60 cent increase on the mill rate. So we would continue to watch this projection. And again, the mill rate is not, if we were to start to draft a resolution, the mill rate itself won't be part of that. We're not guaranteeing a mill rate of a certain amount. We would talk about the scope of the project, and we would talk about the amount that would be bonded. So it's important that we continue to let taxpayers know what the impact would be, but that number is going to fluctuate a little bit, and we'll keep everybody updated as we learn more there.
Before we jump to questions, I just wanted to, along with David, I'll kick it off and he can talk next steps definitely with you then. But essentially at this point, we wanted to be prepared to come to you, I should say, to present all this information with the idea that to really look at the timeline. The board really directing the district tonight, so not taking action to approve a referendum, but directing the district to prepare resolutions in draft form for an amount not to exceed 24 million, inclusive of the scope presented this evening, would be what the district will be looking for you to do. And then David, if you want to cover the next steps.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to read every one of them to their entirety, but we're to the point, based on the recommendations that we've gotten on the polling, based on the work that we have done in our community to get feedback, that we are to that point where we'd start to draft that resolution. That will absolutely be a partnership with Nexus, Baird, and our legal counsel to make sure that those resolutions would be crafted accurately. What we've had in mind, what we've talked about, and I think what would be of benefit is you guys take in a whole lot tonight, is to come back together on August 3rd, which is where we had tentatively planned another board workshop, where we can see a couple draft language or, the language, what it would look like. Brian and Kevin would be a part of that conversation for us to really make sure that when you're asked questions, you understand what's in and what's out as far as scope. So you can review these documents that you have before that and really make sure that you could speak to that in the community. And then we would bring that, what we had discussed on the August 3rd, back to the board on August 17th at our regular meeting to be presented to the board for potential approval. That puts us in a good timeline. The deadline for meeting that November referendum is August 30th. So it gives us plenty of time to process all of that and get that in so that we're not sweating at the last minute. And then probably more important than that timeline is beginning the work of really informing our community. I think I think Peter did a great job of telling us, there's going to be factors out of our control, but what is in our control is how we communicate the why behind why we're doing this and the need for our district. So we would be working a lot on that marketing campaign just to inform our community on what this would look like if approved or if not approved, and kind of begin to think from there. The other piece of that may very well factor in is if we do go to resolution, that may actually affect our annual meeting as well, where we may look to approve two different budgets, one based on if the referendum were to pass and one based on if the referendum were to fail, so that we would immediately start to move up for this year or change whatever that the mill rate and all those types of things. So just bringing that into the conversation, that those are conversations that we're having with Baird right now and the benefits of doing that, so that we will that may be a possibility in October. So with that said, I'm looking for feedback. I'm guessing the feeling is you guys would like to have some more time to really interrogate this and talk about it on August 3rd. Am I correct in that?
I feel like we need to talk about it as a group some more, but I also feel like we just got this, so
Yep.
I don't think, I'm prepared, I guess, at this point to say, yep, let's move ahead. I'd really like to look at it some more. I mean, we've talked about everything, but to see it print, what's actually checked off, what's not checked off, I think is important.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will plan to roll with that meeting on the 3rd. I'll get a timeout for you right away tomorrow, and we'll get that on the agenda for us. And you guys can have some time to think about this, look at this, ask questions ahead of time if you have them, so we can make sure that we're prepared for you. And we'll bring some draft resolutions to discuss at that meeting as well. Any other comments or direction for me or Kevin, or any other questions for Peter before he takes off?
I just really appreciate the extra time that we've taken to make sure that we've listened to what the community has to say. And Peter, I felt like your information was very beneficial because while we maybe think that by word of mouth, knowing it from a neutral third party is, I think, very important. So I appreciate you taking the time and doing it so quickly. A week for that kind of work. I'm in marketing. That's not easy. So thank you.
All right. Anything for me, as long as I'm here? Otherwise, you'll see me again. No, probably. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin. Drive safe, Peter.
Yep,
Thank you.
drive safe, safe travels. All right. Board President's report. So set a date and time for the budget hearing and annual meeting. We've discussed October 27th at 6:30, but we need to officially set that date and time so that we can post, etc.
27.
October 27th.
That's a Thursday, right?
Oh, is it?
Really?
On my calendar it is, yeah.
Oh,
Don't remember if there was a reason.
I was gonna say, is there a reason we're going Thursday?
It has to do with that young lady that comes and talks. So yes, we need it to be Thursday.
Oh, Angie.
For Angie to be here.
Yeah, I think we want Angie there.
She doesn't talk. She just
October
hopes we
27th.
don't ask her any questions.
Yes, please.
So, yeah, we have had it on Mondays and Wednesdays, so, but Thursday, the October 27th, I'm glad someone said that.
If there's no other discussion, I'll make a motion to set the budget hearing for 6:30 on October 27th, 2022, for the annual meeting to follow directly after the budget hearing.
I'll second.
Motion by Shelley, seconded by Lori to set the budget hearing for 6:30 PM on Thursday, October 27th, with the annual meeting to follow directly after the budget meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Committee reports, transportation, Joni, Shelley, Lisa.
Yeah, I'll just real quickly, we did meet tonight at 6 o'clock before the meeting. It's the first time we've got together as a committee. Gave them a kind of an overview of our fleet right now, of our vans, our plow truck, buses, kind of talk through. We are definitely getting to a point where we're going to start to look at those things for this year, talk through some of the grants that are out there. We are not a high priority district for some of those grants that are available, but it doesn't mean we won't try to get some additional funding for those types of things. But definitely some things we'll be looking at this year. That will also include keeping a really close eye, and we'll keep you posted on how many kids on each route right now and how many routes we're running, how long those routes are taking. Those are things that we're getting tight on a few of those routes, and depending on what enrollment does, if we have the numbers come in like they did at the beginning of last year, that could be interesting. If we're close to where we are right now, we should be okay, but we'll keep you posted on those types of things. And then I'll be gathering that committee again in the not so distant future.
Any questions? Next, Goals Committee.
Yeah, just
Go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I just again, sorry. We are scheduled for August 16th to 6:15. We've pushed that goals meeting back a little bit. More than anything, Mr. Mullenberg, Mr. Johnson, and I are all three attending the PLCs at Work convention this summer, and we intend to get our group together while we're there, while we're really thinking about that PLCs and that type of thing, and work on those building goals or the district goals at that point in time. It's going to be a good chance for us to really solidify the vision and for the year and for the district. So we're going to come back after that, meet real briefly with the goals committee, and then hopefully have those for your approval on the August 17th meeting.
Any questions? All right, moving to district financials.
For district financials, those are available there to the board for questions and for review. The one question we did get in was on P&T Electric, and there were some larger bills there. If you remember, prior to me, you guys had moved forward with a fire systems update in both buildings, and the electronic components, all of that was not available at that time. So some of that money was actually set into fund balance so that it could be used when that time came. Materials are here. We're moving forward, and you can see as you walk around this building, some wires hanging out from here to there. You can see that we're in process in this building. We have purchased all of the materials and paying for the labor and the install in this building. We're holding on to all the materials for the elementary school because we don't want to spend money to have them go in and prep that whole building and then potentially go in and remodel that whole building. So we would work with them with those same materials once we have that building redesigned. So trying to be fiscally responsible in that if for some reason we weren't to do anything to that building, we would have them come in and finish that project at that point in time based on the original bid. So that was one of the questions that came up. If there's no other questions on the financials, it does include the quarterly activity account. We'd look for approval there. I will, sorry, I'm just talking tonight. The quarterly activity account, you will see 0 on the tournament fund. Tournament fund this year, for great reasons, was heavily used with 3 teams ending up in the state tournament and a number of other kids, traveling to the state competitions and those types of things. So we went over that budget a little bit, what had not over the budget, but over what had been put into that fund. That fund is primarily its largest source of income has been hosting the sectional track meet over the last number of years. And with the pandemic and everything, that has not occurred. So we did make a transfer to 0 that out from our regular funds, but we wanted to make sure that every one of our kids that earned the right to go to a state tournament had that opportunity to do so. So the district made sure that we covered those things, and that account is at 0. So again, looking for approval on those unless there's any other questions.
I'll move to approve the financials if there's no other questions.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Shelley to approve the financial reports as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Yeah, this could have probably been just in my report, but I wanted to just call attention to this topic of inflation and costs, right? The insurance renewal came in for our building, and the insurance company asked to do a reassessment of value of all of our properties. The property came in significantly higher than it was previously valued. And because it was, we really were saving money on our premiums by paying at the lower value. But if there were ever a catastrophic loss, we would actually be penalized at the time of payout, where if we're not insured for the full value, we would only get paid at the percentage that we're insured for on a catastrophic loss. So with the reassessment, we were able to negotiate to get a good chunk of that added back in and to get to an agreed value on that insurance. So we are 100% covered, going up from $27 million to, or going up to $35 million, $35.8 million from the $27.5 million. And that's about a $5,000 premium increase. Part of wanting to step that up in an increment is if we do some of these projects, I'm sure the value of our properties will continue to grow. And I'd rather not absorb a $15,000 increase all in 1 year. So we stepped it up, and the insurance company was willing to work with us. So we are at agreed values for that policy with about a $5,000 increase. And I just wanted the board to be aware of that conversation.
How often is this reviewed?
They choose. So 3 to 4 years has been the norm. We do work with the insurance company or the insurance center on our property insurance. So they were approached by by the insurance carrier that said we'd like to do a reassessment this year. So they sent somebody out and did it.
I just ask for if we go forward with all of the other remodels, if it'll be like the timing at that time. Like all of this sounds very needed. So,
Yeah.
but if we then revisit it after, if there were big changes
Yeah,
or
I'm
additions,
sure
okay.
once we've had those additions, they ask us that every year when they go through the renewal process. Have you added on anything? Have you, when the greenhouse went on, there was an additional cost, so those types of things. They come in and they do an interview with me every year before they ask for the renewal. So when they see construction trucks, when they come, they'll know that they'll probably be doing another evaluation. So I do anticipate it to, probably continue to climb, but trying to take a bite-sized piece out of that and still stay at that full agreed value.
Any
All right.
questions for David? You can keep on going.
Okay, I'll keep rolling. District action item number 1, my computer froze, so this is going to be fun, is the annual declaration for parents' notice of the district's academic standards that will be in effect for 22-23. This is state statute, and basically this is a pretty simple. We do use the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards and the Common Core standards for our instructional targets for all grade levels. So we're notifying parents of that per statute, and board is just acting on that as we do every year.
I'll make a motion to approve the continued use of the Wisconsin Model Academic Standards and the Common Core State Standards.
I'll second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
That was long enough for me to log out and log back in. That's perfect. The next item is the ending of the pandemic leave. I can't speak strongly enough about how I feel about the way the district responded to the pandemic throughout the last few years. It was difficult. You guys made very difficult decisions in the heat of the moment that maybe we could Monday morning quarterback all day long now, things that we might have done different as a district. But in the moment, this district did a wonderful job of getting through that. Part of that was when there were lengthy requirements in place for quarantine around being COVID positive or someone in your family having COVID. People were staying home extended periods of time when they did not necessarily, they weren't necessarily even sick, or after they had got through all of their symptoms, there was a need for this increased pandemic leave. I think with those requirements being lifted now and more reasonable, if you're sick, stay home. Once you're fever free, those types of things, you can come back. There's not the same household type requirements for quarantine and that type of thing that there was. I think it is appropriate at this point in time to end the pandemic leave. We had put in the pandemic leave the language that it would end when the CDC said that the pandemic was over, or when the board took action to do so. And I'm recommending tonight that the board take action to do so, effective August 1st, 22. And I've got that in the recommended action correct, but not in the end of it. Or no, it was effective for August 1st, 2021. So looking for a motion to remove that unless there's any, to end that unless there's any discussion.
I'll make a motion to end the Bangor School District's non-cumulative pandemic paid leave effective 8/1 of 22.
I'll second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Lisa, to end the Bangor School District non-cumulative pandemic paid leave effective August 1st, 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna go through these, but John is here if there are any questions. So there's some technology purchases. Remember, kind of on average, and it's a moving target each year. We spend about $200,000, a little over $200,000 on facility projects and technology upgrades each year. So this is all part of the plan, kind of going through the checklist of things that need to be done. There's about $50,000 here in the next few things for the computer side, the technology side, and then the $24,000 for the maintenance side towards that 200,000-ish that we spend each year. So the first item is the wireless access points. And again, if there's questions, John's going to be able to get into this much deeper. This is using E-rate pricing. So we're going to approve access point agreement with CDWG for $59,091. When this is all done and they are all installed in our buildings, we do get an E-rate discount of about 60%. So that we are anticipating the end cost to the district of $23,636. Part of that agreement is we are approving the full $59,000 purchase, but I want to be very clear that the end result of that will be about that $23,000. So there's the award letter there for your review as well. So if there's no questions, we'd look for a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve the E-rate wireless access point agreement with CDWG for the $59,091.
Second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
All right. Similarly, we have been looking for the last couple of years at a new data server for the middle school, high school. And supply chain has been more than challenging in this area. We've been working with Skyward, and we were actually able to locate one at a very reasonable cost that we can get right away. So we wanted to go ahead and move forward with that immediately. So there are not multiple quotes for this. Usually we would. This is less than what we were anticipating it being, and it's available now, so we can get rolling. This will put a new server into the middle school, high school. We will reconfigure the server that's currently here and newer than the elementary schools, and we will take the one from here and move it to the elementary school and replace our oldest server at that point in time. So it's kind of a nice little rotation there. Making sure that we're current and up to date. If there's no questions, we'd look for approval for the purchase of the data server.
I'll move to approve the purchase of a new data server from Skyward for an estimated cost of $7,642.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Shelley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks.
All right, the next item there is student iPads. So we have looked very closely at enrollment for next year, and we are anticipating, we're figuring right now to be about even right now based on actual enrollments that we have at the middle school, high school, but we are up about 20 students at the elementary school. We have additional applications at both buildings that could increase that after August 17th when registration takes place. We felt with a 5 to 7 week timeline on getting these, that if we knew for sure we were up 20 from this year, we should get those ordered immediately, and we will distribute these right away. If we have an increase in August, we would order more at that point in time, and we would just wait to distribute the 4K iPads last. And that's the plan that we've discussed. So it's a conservative. The last thing we want is a bunch of iPads that are sitting around not being used. So I think this plan actually responds to the numbers that we feel most confident with. So looking to purchase 20 of them. Again, they're Apple iPads. There's only so many places you can get the Apple iPad from. So the quotes are there for those iPads.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the 20 new iPads from the Apple Computer Corporation to prepare for the increase in enrollment.
I'll second.
Motion by Lori, seconded by Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Similar to the iPads, we have 90 Chromebooks at the middle school, high school that are used frequently for our a lot in our writing type courses, where the students find that typing on an actual keyboard is a little bit easier than typing on their iPads. So they're used there, and they're also used at times that we are testing. Chromebooks in general actually go bad, or not, I shouldn't say they go bad. They stop being supported, so that they become more of a safety risk on our server and all of those types of things. So when Google stops supporting them, it's time to replace them. So we are looking at 60 of them that are about to expire, and the purchase of 60 of those would be a cost of about $17,850, and we would be able to get these in place for the school year.
So Chromebooks themselves don't necessarily go back, they just age out, is that correct?
Right. I mean, Google doesn't support them anymore. They don't get updates anymore. So
Okay.
that would be the problem. About approximately 4 to 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Do the Chromebooks stay here, or are they checked out like the iPads to students, or how does that work?
Well, we check them out at the IMC. They have a checkout process there.
They don't go home unless there's approval from me, typically. So it'd be somebody that might have an online class. They would ask if they could take it for a week or 2 weeks or something like that. So typically they stay in the building though. That's why you have not seen repair costs for those. They have stayed in very good working order because they are a little more fragile. We talked about that. I know when we went to the iPads, they're much more fragile than the iPads are. So John, as far as physical repairs on them?
We have not had none actually.
Right, it's been zero. So I kind of like that system, and then it's accountable to the kids that do take them home, which is good.
So what happens to the 60 that are timed out? They're just junk, I assume, or?
I will put it out to the vendors that I know that may purchase them, but more than likely we probably will not get very much for them at
Okay.
all, if maybe not any.
Okay, I was just curious.
But I will check and see, so.
If there's no other questions, we'd look for a motion to approve that purchase.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of 60 new Chromebooks from Connections Incorporated for a total of $17,850.
Second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
So when we talked facility study earlier, this is one of those projects that was originally in the facility study in one of those high need areas. It's not going to wait for us, so we're going to move forward and get repairs done. So is my understanding is not terribly long after this building was built, some of the urinals there was settling and some cracking occurred. Many of them have been glued back together, repaired, but those are not permanent repairs, and some are failing fairly significantly at this point in time. So we are looking to replace, it's a total of 10 urinals. There are 6 in the high school wing, 6 in the middle school wing, and 6 here off the cafeteria that we would be able to be replaced. We are recommending going with Maxwell White, a local plumber just down the road here on the way to West Salem. They came in significantly better than the other bids. You will note that if you looked at this before today, the bid is slightly higher. We did call and let them know that we anticipate approving their bid. They let us know that the Kohler urinals that they had quoted us are the availability is a real struggle. So by going to American Standard, same type of thing, we're able to get them right away, and the additional cost is only about $550. So we are recommending that we go with the full $24,463 to get those replaced, and they believe that we will be able to have them in and in working order before school starts. So that's that would be great for our building.
I'll move to approve the bid for replacement of 10 urinals and surrounding tile through Maxwell White Plumbing.
I'll second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. So next on the agenda is Section 9, Personnel, and I'm going to make a motion that we take the entire Section 9 into closed session.
I'll second.
Motion made by Julie, seconded by Lori to take Section 9 Personnel into closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
And just clarifying per statute 19851C. So yeah.
Oh,
Just,
thank
yep.
you.
No, that's all good.
Oh, you have that on there. Thank
I
you.
do.
Section 10.
Yeah.
Josh? Mr. Chaplin?
Yeah. Rick, you want to talk and go through Josh's?
Who's going to be Mr. Chaplin tonight? He's got it written in here pretty good.
My throat's getting sore.
Okay.
We can read. It's nicely written.
I was gonna say it's updates on the reporting for the forward and all of those. As you know, they're still embargoed, ACT and those things. So there will be a release date, and he always talks about that. And then we'll be able to get those out to students. As far as seclusion and restraint, he has to file that every year. That's by state statute. There were 9 seclusions and 9 restraints of students, as he has there at alternative educational placement. So those wouldn't be in our school. There were 0 reported at our 2 schools here. And then Cardinal Hall of Distinction, the deadline for nominations is July 31st, and he always has that on there. That's a wonderful thing that the district does that I know was started a few years back. So that's just more of an informational thing on there. Otherwise, I'll let you read the rest that you're interested in as well.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Mullenberg. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Julie. Just a quick update on school, or summer school, finished up with about 216 kids. We had about 9 students that signed up but just never showed up, which is a really small number actually. And probably more significantly to me, the number that showed up repeatedly. Sometimes you get, a kid who shows up once or twice and then all of a sudden they disappear for the rest of the time. We didn't have that, which I kind of gauge as the good job that our staff did engaging kids in the day. A lot of kids every kid was there, the vast majority, some little vacations and things like that.
Mike, can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So remind me, what are we aided from a summer school
We had
perspective?
11 FTEs.
11 FTEs, okay.
Last year was 9.
Okay, thank you.
Year before that was 1.
Let's not go back to that.
I remember that one. That was bad. Library summer plans. So we just, as I told you, I think the other day we opened up the library tonight from 5 to 6:30. I want to thank Lindsay Payton and Brenda Bratz for coming in and hanging out. We did only have a couple people show up. It was really disappointing that way, but it's hard. There's fair going on. There's ball going on. It was maybe we got to look at it a little bit differently, but middle of July is busy for everybody. But it was a great effort. Our intentions are to continue to keep kids accessing quality literacy materials throughout summer.
That word of mouth that he talked about, that'll help.
Yeah, it will. Update on childcare survey. I think we've kind of talked through this before, so this is just an update, and really I look back at the survey and nothing has really changed. In the survey, 26, so this is children, 26 children had their parents say that they would pay an amount of $10 to $12 a week, a day per week to get them care after school. But when asked if they paid all 5 days, 20 said they were willing to pay for the 5 days, which is significant as the number of people in there that said we only want to pay for the days that the kids are there. That is the cause that the YMCA is not here. That very premise is why the system isn't working in Bangor. So unfortunately, there are 20 kids that, and families that have a need. But if we had an open session here in this facility where, very few people showed up. And then only, 20, I think 26 people or 24 people took the survey actually. So that's what we have right now.
Yeah, and when I look at that and we look at next steps, there are some grants out there available that we will continue to look at that would be coming available mid-year that we could maybe look at something for next year. The administrative part of making all of that work, if it is our teams making that function, hiring staff, scheduling, communicating all of that out to parents, there's no factor in for that amount of time that it would take. Mike and I have chatted multiple times, or Mr. Johnson and I have chatted multiple times. He is doing curriculum instruction responsibilities for the district. He's taking care of summer school, and the reality is the administering of all of that would additionally fall on him because they're his kids and his family. While I too, I would love to be able to do something to help support those 20 families better. The reality of it is the reward versus the energy and effort and time put in by the district. Not that we're looking to make money on it, but we can't at this point in time afford to give up that time for a small group like that. So we appreciate the people that have responded. We are not ignoring those 20 families that really do need that, or those 20 kids that really need that. But we definitely need to figure out a better way and a more sustainable way to do that for the future. So at this point in time, we are not planning on having that after school program up and running for the 22-23 school year.
Just to clarify, it's not 20 families. It's about 14 families.
Okay.
20 kids. This is just a couple shout outs here. Riverbank downtown Bangor did about a month-long food drive for us. Called up, Lindsay Wood called me up the other day and said, hey, I have some food that we collected and we're going to bring that up to you. And so we put that into our pantry for our backpack program. So we'll get that to families this fall. And then another great, Sally Latan, one of our kindergarten teachers, wrote a grant to UWL on her own. It's pretty awesome. She wanted to, she was awarded a $250 UWL mini grant to work on literacy instruction at the kindergarten level.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Thank you, Mike. Mr. Mullenberg.
Thank you. Just a couple items on mine. When I start putting these things on there, then the rubber starts to hit the road as far as getting back into school again. It's kind of funny. I talked to a staff member the other day, and I said, I'm preparing. They asked me what I was doing. I said, I'm preparing the fall staff letter for return. And they implored me. They said, do not send it out before August 1st because that's my unofficial end of summer when I see that. So, but anyway, on my agenda tonight, we do have high school athletics starting in a few weeks with, you can see with high school football August 2nd, volleyball and cross country on August 15th. So right around the corner for those. And then our registration dates are the 16th and 17th from 1 to 7 p.m. That's more just, for parents as well. And then pictures will be taken during that time as well for all kids, including our seniors, because those are pictures we use through our JMC software and things. And Melanie has, I have my welcome back letter in there. Melanie has all the registration packets and everything will be sent out next week. They'll be put in the mail. I believe, Gene, we talked about Wednesday having those sent out, so parents will have all the information they need on that. And I know Terry and Melanie sent out today, I believe it was, to all the families that took out open enrollment papers. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're coming when they do that in the spring, but they sent those mailers out to get an idea of who they think will be coming. That way we can get them in our system so they can register on those dates. Otherwise, it's a little more cumbersome. So I appreciate the efforts by Melanie and Terry doing that and kind of preparing. And they met to try to get our systems in line with both buildings so that we're very similar. There's been some good efforts there to do that. And Melanie also has a broken foot, or a bone in one foot, and then the other one, her ankle. But she was still in here. I mean, she's quite the trooper, and I appreciate everything that she does with that, for sure.
Any questions for Mr. Mullenberg? Thank you. Mr. Brackett?
All right. Going down my list here, as you know, enrollment, we've watched those numbers. We did reduce to 2 sections of first grade for this school year. We're monitoring those numbers closely. I think what we want to do here is just be really proactive. If we were to have a number of new families show up for first grade, we don't want to be waiting a long time to put a hire in place if we did need to go back to 3 sections. So I just notifying you, I do intend to post for an anticipated vacancy for first grade. We will not screen candidates. We will not do any interviews or anything until the board were to take action. But we do just want to have some names ready and be ready to move on that if enrollment day is on the 16th and 17th. If they were to look like last year and we would have a concentration there, that could very well be a reality for us. So just kind of an FYI to the board, not making any decisions without you, but being prepared in case we need to move quickly.
David?
Yes.
What are the numbers currently? Do you know, or Mike, one of you, sorry?
For first grade, it's 38 as of yesterday.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So third grade's also really large. 48. We're growing.
Yep.
Who's 48? I'm
Third
sorry.
grade,
Third grade.
correct. Fifth grade's pretty low, 36. Fourth grade's in that lower 40, I think 44, if I'm right. And then second grade's big, in that 50 range. And again, first grade is 38. And then I think kindergarten's at 40, 41, maybe.
Remind me of the grade levels again that we have 3 sections of.
K,
Yep.
2.
K and 2 is only. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Good. And again, we're going to continue to monitor those numbers. We'll continue to keep you posted and we'll be prepared. Bus inspections I've talked about a couple times via email. They've been rescheduled twice. They will happen on August 2nd. I didn't share this with Transportation Committee, but I'll share just a shout out to Cletus. Clemens has been doing a great job on our buses. We've been trying to get them in proactively and take care of as much as we can ahead of those inspections, the things that he knows is going to get flagged during the inspections because he helps fix them every year after. So we are really optimistic that our inspections go well because of the work that he's been doing ahead of time and making sure that we're all up to snuff there. I just wanted to, again, let you know, anticipate August reviewing. I'm currently reviewing the employee handbook. There's a lot to go through there with the recommendations that come out from WASDA, and then making sure any changes we made last year in policy are reflected in our handbook. And believe it or not, I have a list of things that came up this year that would have been nice to have a little bit clearer in there. So trying to integrate those as well. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. And if if there are things that you have thought about as far as handbook, and if there's any questions or thoughts that you'd like me to add, please reach out, shoot me an email or give me a call. But I'm working on those. Similarly, I have reached out to Tammy and Dr. Warsing to sit down and just kind of look at our current COVID response plan, make sure there's not anything in there that we want to pull out before the beginning of the year. I do think it warrants probably having something in place that at least acknowledges what steps we are going to take. But I don't want to be in a place where we've got something in there with 5 days that we're forced to enforce that maybe didn't need to be per the current CDC guidance. So we'll make sure that that is updated. And I think waiting till August, it seems like we sat here and made some really good decisions last July, and then in August had to change a whole bunch of stuff. So we'll wait a little bit on that, but reviewing that. 21-22 audit kicks off on August 1st. So think of Angie and thank her for her hard work on that. You'll obviously see at the annual meeting the full breakdown of the budget, but just if you think about some of the extra things that we did this year with some of the bonuses that we were able to do, that one-time bonus that we did in December, and some of the extra purchases we made towards the end of the year, getting ahead on the carpet replacement, getting ahead on some of the board replacements, all of those types of things, all fitting into that. And we're anticipating putting about $45,000 into the Fund 46, that capital improvement fund, and putting it in there versus into fund balance allows it to be aidable. And we've learned in the last few weeks, it's important to make that money aidable. So that's an investment into, most likely we're seeing more and more that Fund 46 is an investment towards the roof on this building when it comes time. So the more that we can continue to put in there, when this roof comes to the point where it needs to be replaced, we're going to be in a position that we can take that on. So that's kind of there. So obviously we'll get more in depth on that, but I just wanted to give you that general idea of where we're ending the year. So it was really good things that we're looking at there. Any questions for me? Otherwise, to the consent.
Okay. Moving on, removal of items from the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are A, current openings, B, high school academic handbook, and you could see the attachments, early graduation request, the Bridging Brighter Smiles report, and then hiring of the high school boys basketball C team coach. If no one desires any removals, I look for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Motion by Joni, seconded by Shelley to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We will now adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, para 1, para C, para F. I ask for a motion.
So moved.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Shelley. We'll do roll call vote, starting with Joni.
Aye.
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 We are now in closed session. Am I ready to go, John? Okay, all right, we are now back in open session. We will return to section 9, personnel. We start with the resignation from third grade teacher Julie Regan.
Would just say here, Julie served the district since 1999. Absolutely outstanding educator, has helped years and years of our students as they've come through Bangor School. So we thank her for her service to the district and wish her all the best in her future endeavors. So looking for a motion to approve the resignation of Julie Regan.
I'll make a
Go ahead.
Did you need to talk to him? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the resignation of Julie Regan from her position as third grade teacher effective June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. New hire, elementary music teacher.
Mike, chime in if you need to, if you would like to say anything, but looking for a motion to approve the hire of Paul Satterdaski as our new elementary music teacher. Just finished up his program at UW La Crosse as in the music ed program. Did his student teaching in Onalaska. Nothing but glowing reviews of him. Just going to be an outstanding a new addition to our elementary staff. So if there's no questions, we'd look for the motion to approve Paul Satterdaski for the music teacher position.
So I'll make a motion to approve the hire of Paul Sattergaski as the new elementary music teacher effective for the 22-23 school year.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Shelley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Hire of an elementary special education teacher.
This first hire is a motion to approve the hire for Courtney Piskey for the special education position effective for the 22-23 school year. Courtney actually did her student teaching with us this fall in both the regular education classroom and the special education classroom, served the district in the support role for the second half of the year in speech, and is coming back to us next year. And will be a full-time special ed teacher working largely with our EBD population. So with that, we're looking for a motion to approve the hire of Courtney Piskey.
I'll make a motion to approve the hire of Courtney Piskey as elementary special education teacher effective at the start of the 22-23 school year.
Second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain, Julie.
Shelley will abstain. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, I did that already. Sorry. Sorry. All right, hire of second grade teacher.
All right, this motion is to approve the hire of Sarah Jarvis for our second grade position. Sarah comes to us with 21 years of experience, most recently serving in the Sparta School District at Cataract Elementary School, is incredibly excited to come to the district, lives in the district, has a son in the district, and just couldn't be more excited to be part of our team. Interview team was very impressed with her energy and her expertise that she brings to this role. So looking for a motion to approve the hire of Sarah Jarvis for second grade teaching beginning the 22-23 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve the hire of Sarah Jarvis as a second grade teacher, beginning with the start of the 22-23 school year.
I'll second.
I'm gonna let Rick take the next one.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Tina. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Mellenberg?
Next, Crystal Brockup, we are recommending for hire for third grade. Interview team was impressed with Crystal. She comes with 12 years of experience. She did sub in our district, including third grade. And she said she absolutely loved what she did over there and the people that she worked with. She's very excited to join our district. This last year, she also worked at UW La Crosse and did some supervising of student teachers and then also teaching classes for them as well. So she comes with us with a wealth of experience, especially at the elementary level, but she did sub for K through 12 last year for us and was highly sought after by our teachers to sub. So I think that says a lot for her as well. So we are recommending a motion to approve the hire of Crystal Brockup, third grade teacher.
I'll make a motion to approve the hire of Crystal Brockup as third grade teacher effective for the 22-23 school year.
Second. Go ahead, Joni.
Motion made by Shelley, seconded by Tina. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Transfer increased classroom teacher to special ed.
Yeah, typically a transfer would be just kind of a notifying the board of moving things around. This is slightly different. Tara Blount came to us with interest in the special education positions. We had been talking from the beginning when Tara Jamboy resigned from the district. Can we make that 3 full-time positions at the elementary school? When we saw the increase in numbers to our special education program over the course of last year, we really felt that this did warrant increase to a full-time position. So we're approving more so that transition from the 0.775 FTE that was in place to the 1.0 position, and then obviously Tara Blount moving into that position.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of Tara Blount from the full-time first grade teacher to a full-time special education teacher effective with the 22-23 school year.
Second.
Motion made by Lori, seconded by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I think that is all. I ask for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Joni, seconded by Lori to adjourn this meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank